It's Ivy Slater, and you're listening to Her Success Story podcast, a show where gutsy businesswomen share their success journey. Hi, this is Ivy Slater. Welcome to today's episode of Her Success Story. So my guest today, I could read her bio, I could read the introduction, but before I do any of that, let me just tell you about my dear friend. Michelle Perreault and I met probably 25 years ago, and I'm giving this a guess, Michelle, when I was a printer and Michelle was working for a design studio. She has gone on for many, many years. She built her own company. She's the founder, creative director, and the lead designer of Mod Lab, Minds on Design Lab. Michelle and her team has done the original branding for Slater Success back in the day in 08, 09. We still model the branding that her company has done. We've worked together and collaborated under many, many times. Most importantly, Michelle has dedicated the focus of her work in her company on working with companies that make a difference. And I'm going to have Michelle talk more about that. Michelle, I'm so glad you joined me today. We were just talking before we actually started the recording of the golden ticket of business is truly the relationships we create. And I am very, very grateful for the relationship that we've had all these years. So welcome to Her Success Story.
Thank you. No, I'm so grateful that I met you, that we've been able to stay in touch all this time. And I have to say, Ivy, since the day I met you in the first job we did together, you've always been such a guide for me. Like I've always really looked up to you. You were always so helpful. And I feel like you're still that today. So it's really special to be able to have that relationship with you. So thank you.
You're welcome. So when did you start Mod? I remember coming to your studio in Dumbo back in the day, and I'm marking that as it had to be 17 years ago or more.
So 2007 is when we officially started Mod Lab. Yes. I think there were a couple years before that where I was freelancing. And so I was doing some work on my own, but I was also working with other design agencies. And I think you and I met through another design agency I was working with at the time.
What was the catalyst for you to start Mod Lab?
As I was just saying, when I started my career, I was doing mostly business, like corporate communications. And once in a while, a nonprofit job would come across my desk, and I loved doing that work. So I started paying more attention to that space and what nonprofits were doing and how they were presenting themselves. And I saw what I saw was something that I felt at the time needed to be addressed, which was there was a lot of these nonprofits, especially smaller ones, that were doing this incredible work, but I felt like the way they presented themselves just didn't reflect that quality. Yeah. So I said, you know what? I have all this skill and this knowledge from this other work that I'm doing. I know that if I go on my own, I can find a way to sort of give them that quality, that level of work more efficiently, AKA more affordably for them, because honestly, a lot of the times it came down to resources, right? They didn't have resources to hire an agency. And so that was sort of how Mod Lab was hatched.
And you have stayed true to truly focusing and doing so much work in the area of nonprofit.
We have. I feel very grateful that I've been able to do that.
When I first met you, you were freelancing. Yeah. Then you built a true company. What was the process like? Close to 20 years later, truly, right? We're talking 17, 18 years here. What was the journey for you like in building a company? I'm just going to throw us, we were both pretty young.
Yeah. So it was actually very slow for me, to be honest. When I started out, I didn't actually think I was going to have a company. I thought it was going to be just me and I was going to help these nonprofits, right? But then, like happens, I was able to hit on something that was addressing a real need. And so the demand grew and it became more work than I could do. So I just started making partnerships with other people that were interested in doing that same work. And for a while, it was just like that. There was other freelancers, we would work together. And then at some point, we got to a point where it was steady enough that we felt like we could evolve into creating a small team. But I will say, like, by design and because of who we serve, we are a small team, and that works. It works for us and it works for the people that we serve. We never grew to be huge numbers, and that's okay. That works for us.
It works very much in your space and what you can do and
Exactly.
how you serve your clients.
Yes.
If I asked you, what are some of the things that might have surprised you in this journey?
Oh boy. A lot of things.
We could do the entire podcast on this one question.
Yes, we definitely can. I mean, like I was saying before, one of the things originally that surprised me was how many of these organizations like didn't have anyone on their staff or that they were working with that had an eye on their brand or their design, right? So like that to me was a lot do. I'm not saying none, but there were so many that didn't. And as soon as you start having conversations with them or asking questions, they're like, they get right away how that's so important. But I guess it was maybe a little surprising to me that some people just didn't put the importance on that I feel like is needed, right? They kind of were like, we don't really need to pay attention to that right now.
Yes, and I'm going to jump in here because we met back when I was a printer,
Yeah.
right? So the whole branding thing really resonates with me. And when we look at nonprofits and we look at them putting their brand out, it matters in their fundraising.
Yes.
The key thing is, I'll always say the differentiation between a nonprofit and a for-profit. In a for-profit, in a business model, when we sell something, it comes back to, right? We're solving a problem, we're selling a product or a service, and we're getting the revenue for it. In a
Mm-hmm.
nonprofit, you're asking for the revenue and you're distributing it in completely a different direction towards the nonprofit. So what you're doing is it's the brand that represents where the money is going to go. It's that first impression.
Right. And all the same principles apply. I mean, all the reasons why a good, consistent, well designed, I am a designer after all, brand is important. You have to be able to tell the right story. You have to do it in a consistent way. You want people to be able to recognize you over time. So all of those things are really important. And I think sometimes when some organizations are resource strapped, especially, they just don't have the bandwidth to be thinking about all of
Yeah.
those details, right? So they're doing the
So,
work.
so what had, when you decided to hunker down into the nonprofit space,
Mhm.
what have you done as far as in your own area of like marketing and sales, in how do you create, so you make a decision, and so often you hear, we talk about in business, you want to niche down. Okay, so
Mhm.
you identified the niche, but you identified the niche and not necessarily an area that it's always easy to
Right.
generate clients. What have you done for Mod Lab over the years, you and your team, as far as building your clientele?
Yeah. So we do get a lot of clients through referrals. So our network is so important. Like just like you and I were saying before,
Yeah.
maintaining those relationships, staying in touch with everyone, even if we haven't worked together for a little while, just like staying in touch, making sure that we know what's going on with them and we're still being a champion of them no matter what they're doing. I would say that's number one for us in terms of being able to, because then that they refer you, right? So when
Right.
people like you, they refer you, and in our space that's super important.
And when people can rely on you, there's truly that know, like, and trust factor.
Yeah.
So it's they get to know you, they get to like you, but then when they really trust you, have your back, you have their best intentions, and you're a means for them to accomplish their goals, and you put out a good brand, and you do, Michelle. My lab does put out a great brand,
Yeah.
and you're at the conferences with other nonprofits, you're at the seminars, and this is what's being talked about,
Mm-hmm.
and that's your referral factor.
Yes. Yes. And I also will say what you said before about niching down, that's just good business practice. But for us, it was like to a degree because, there was a period of time where we were oftentimes competing for business against much larger agencies, and we wouldn't get it, right? We would get really far in the process and we wouldn't get it. And then at one point, I think I just realized like we're not the right fit for some of this work. And so really just trying to think about who are we the right fit for, and spending more time getting to know those people and breaking into that community was a game changer for us, right? Because we had a lot more success.
let's talk woman to woman here for a sec. As we've known each other for all this a long time,
Mm.
you watched me raise my kids to a degree. You have a family. How do you balance as far as leadership wise your time? Because you do have a small team. So when you
Mhm.
have a small team, it's all hands on deck. How do you find the balance and the flow more than that? And I hate the word balance. So I'm going to scrap that. How do you find the flow of
Right.
life
Yeah.
as far as working mom, running a business, etc.?
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, it's about making decisions about how you want to prioritize your time and being okay with that. Because sometimes it's really hard to juggle both. And I always prioritize. When I had my daughter, I said, I want to be present. I don't want to be coming home every night at 8 o'clock at night, just tucking her in, right? I want to be more present. So I set up my team. I hired people that I knew would do really good work and that I could really lean on at the times when I wanted to be there for my daughter or wanted to be there for my family. So I just think having other people on your team or in your network, we also have a network of other super talented designers. And like if we are super busy and it's becoming overwhelming, I can call them in, right? So it's like for me, it was just about making the decision that I did want to prioritize some of my time for family and trying to stick to that.
I'll always say, and I've thrown out years ago, I threw out work life balance. And
Yeah.
I kind of say like just flow and integration, because there's just times that this is where I'm going to be for my family. And there's times that this is where I'm going to be for my business. And it's
Hmm.
non negotiable when I have my values and my priorities in order. And I
Right.
think it can get confusing to some when we're not clear on that. And I think that clarity is that key.
Yeah. I think you're right.
How do you figure out your own self care? Because I know you're dedicated to it, and I love
Yeah.
that about you.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's finding something you love. I think, for many years, I studied the martial art of Aikido, right?
Yeah.
And I was very dedicated to that practice, getting to the dojo multiple times a week, being part of that community. And I loved being there. And so just like the fact that like I would want to go, I would look forward to going. I went every day. And that was good for my mind. It was good for my body, just so that having some sort of a consistent practice worked for me, something that I would be consistently involved in. And I think that was a big part of my self-care. Yeah.
And do you still find time for it today?
So since I moved a
How
couple
has
years
life
ago,
evolved?
so while I was in Brooklyn, I was there, and that was up until a few years ago. And then when I moved, I could no longer be there.
We have to
Um,
evolve.
but the relationships I've made there, the people I've met, my teachers, like I'm still in touch with everyone. And at some point, I would like to get back to that very much. So yeah, but now I'm just hitting the gym and walking my dog. It's a different kind of exercise, but it's still there.
Any tips or piece of advice that you can share with other business owners that are building? We've interviewed so many, and one of the amazing gifts of talking to you is your longevity in business.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, I would say really just paying attention to the different ways that you add value in your business, right? So I think a lot of, it's easy to say, like, this is my work product. Like, yes, that's valuable, but there's also a lot of other ways, whether it's, are you easy to work with? Like I was saying to you before, are you a guide to other people? Like for us, we work really hard to put things in front of our clients that they can just be like, yes, make a decision and move on because I know they're so busy.
Right.
So I think sometimes finding like outside of the core work product, like what other ways are you adding value and sort of marketing that in a way or sharing with people that because it's huge. It can be really huge, just those other things.
I think that's spot on. And I don't know if I've ever put it that way. It's what else? Like, how do you add value? And from the design perspective, it's true. And if I think about the times we've worked together, it's, putting something in front of me and I was like, yeah, that works. And
Right.
how much time it saves the client, or, when you have, if any, minimal adjustments or shifts,
Hmm.
and that time is golden It's so important. We have,
Time is golden. Any way you can save people time, they are going to be happy about that. Yeah.
and I think that's something really to think about.
Yeah.
And so then the thought for you listeners is, what can you be doing other than what we deliver as part of our business? What added value can you add to your clients, to your customers? What else is there? Is it the way you package something?
Yeah.
And that's sometimes a product and sometimes not a product. But
Exactly.
what's the added something that you can do? Who are you and what is your business and what extra can you show up with? That becomes part of, in a way, Michelle, what you're saying is your trademark.
Yeah.
Any last tips or pieces of wisdom, Miss Perreault?
Okay, this is a very designer thing to say, but I'm going to say
Yeah.
it because it came up before when you asked me about surprising, but I had too many ideas. Don't be afraid of white space. White space is your friend. And what I mean by that is
Now I was going to
have
say
your
that. Now
message.
take that added designer
Yeah, let's
context
take that.
because
You're,
I get you.
you get it because you're in your printing world. But we come across this all the time because we are putting together presentation materials, outreach materials, right? People are trying to tell their story, they're trying to promote a message, but they want to say everything. And so then the reader walks away, maybe not remembering what was important because there was too much there. So don't be afraid to sort of be bold, stick with that one important message. That would be something that I try to
When
advocate
I
for.
hear consistency,
Yeah, and consistency. Yeah.
be bold, be consistent. That's the stick to
Mm-hmm.
piece.
Exactly.
And I love the fact of be bold. That matters.
Yeah.
Don't play it small.
Right.
Love it. So, listeners, for those of you who have tuned in today, before I close out the show, I want to let you know that one of the best times of years, one of the greatest series is coming up starting next week. Every year for the holidays, from Thanksgiving through usually past New Year's, we do a series 100% dedicated to the nonprofit world, which is one of the reasons I asked Michelle to be on today, is because of their dedication to the nonprofit world. Nonprofits are not having an easy time of it these days. Funds are limited. It matters to help expose, share things forward. I'm really excited. We have an amazing lineup coming up. So stay tuned and think about the nonprofits that make an impact and listen in to be not just to be exposed to more, but to learn and take it back to any nonprofits that you're involved in or people inspired to start nonprofits. Michelle, ModLab is amazing. I feel incredibly lucky and blessed that we have kept this going for 20 some odd years between the two of us.
Thank you, Ivy. Likewise.
And thank you for joining me here today.
Thank you for having me. I'm looking forward to listening to the rest of the nonprofit series.
Yeah, we really
Yeah.
have some great nonprofits lined up this year. And I feel we do every year. Listeners, this is what I'm going to say at the end of every show. Take a deep breath in. Take that moment. It's so important. Identify just one takeaway or aha. Is it the white space? Is it the niche? Is it how you're showing up? Is it your own brand? And then just make the decision on one action you're going to take forward into your world, your business, and your life. You stick with us every week. Every week, you will have an action, and that creates the consistency for your business, your career, and your success. So, thank you for joining me here today on Her Success Story, and I'll see you next week on the Nonprofit Series.